The company Zoom, known of course for its video conferencing service, is maybe the business that benefited the most from remote work and the changes that were brought about to our society because of the pandemic, as everyone was using Zoom to talk to their friends and talk to their family because we couldn't see people in person. And businesses were using it to do their meetings, schools were using it to conduct classes, and courts were using it as well. But now, in what may be a telltale sign of what's going on with remote work and what's to come over these next few months and years, is that they are calling their employees back into the office. Zoom is asking its 7,400 workers who live near the office to report to work twice a week. So they're going to be adopting a hybrid approach. A company spokesperson said, quote, "We believe that a structured hybrid approach, meaning employees that live near an office need to be on site 2 days a week to interact with their teams, is most effective for Zoom. As a company, we are in a better position to use our own technologies, continue to innovate, and support our global customers." So this story is less about Zoom specifically and more about the direction of remote work, since if they, a company that benefited the most from this, are saying we're going to go back to the office some days of the week, then certainly plenty of other companies are going to be doing the exact same thing. And indeed, we've already really seen quite a bit of that. Other companies that have told their workers to come back into the office, at least part-time, at least in a hybrid system, include Amazon, Apple, BlackRock, Chipotle, Citigroup, Disney, Goldman Sachs, Google, IBM, JP Morgan, Meta, Redfin, Salesforce, Snap, Starbucks, and Uber. Now, there is some idea that this has to do with worker productivity and companies believing that workers are more productive when they are physically in the office. Now, when it comes to this matter, you can find studies that show that remote workers are more productive, and you can find studies that show that workers are less productive. At this point, I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to fully know if we can conclusively say whether remote workers are more or less productive, because many of us have been doing the remote work thing for 3 years now. Plenty of other people have been doing it for longer, but so many people started doing it 3 years ago when the pandemic began. And if we haven't figured it out after 3 years, I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to figure it out. Now, I can see the argument for both sides, right? Because if you're not physically in the office and if you don't have someone watching over your shoulder, if you don't constantly have people checking in with you, maybe you'll be incentivized to just do the bare minimum. But on the other hand, if you have the computer at your home and you can constantly just go and check in on an email, even if it's 7 o'clock at night, or you can start work a little bit earlier because you don't have to worry about the commute and getting ready as much, maybe you are more productive. So I think it's probably a case-by-case basis, but we don't seem to have any sort of conclusive data on that. Now, one hypothesis that I've heard of for why companies want to bring workers back into the office is that they are looking for a creative way to cut labor costs without having to fire people, without having to lay people off. The idea being that there were too many workers that were added on during the pandemic because there was a whole bunch of spending going on and so many companies were growing at that time. But now that interest rates are so high and it's harder for companies to borrow money, they're strapped for cash, they need to cut back where they can, and doing so with labor is an effective way to do that. But layoffs can be hugely expensive, right? Because of unemployment benefits, because in some instances there's severance pay you got to pay out, and it can also come with damage to the brand. It can come with damage to the stock valuation of the company because there's this sense that maybe they're on the decline. There could also be a loss in morale at the company. So what these companies are doing is saying, look, everyone needs to come back to the office at least a few days a week, knowing that a certain percentage of the workers won't be willing to do that and they'll quit on their own and try to find a new job. And then you don't have all those negative consequences that I just laid out, but you're still able to downsize. Ultimately, I think it's too bad that society is going back in the direction of going physically into the office, even if it is under a hybrid system. I think it's been proven that many of these jobs can be done remotely and that it's better for people's work-life balance and it saves people time and money on their commute. You got to figure if you drive an hour one way to work and then drive an hour home and you're working 8 hours, well, you're actually working 10 hours more so, and you're also spending money to pay for the gas and everything like that. So effectively you're getting paid less and all these different things. Whereas if you work from home, you don't have to worry about all that stuff and you get to keep more of your paycheck. So there will ultimately be jobs that remain fully remote. I'm sure of it. And people who are seeking that out specifically will probably be able to find it still, but it's unfortunate when people get used to remote work and actually enjoy it, and they've been doing it for years at this point, and they're asked to go back into the office. As for me, I love remote work. I would be okay with, a short commute, maybe a little walk or something like that. But I do think that it's an excellent perk to be able to work from home. And I do think that I'm more productive because I'll just hop on the computer at any time I want to when something comes up, when something pops into my mind, rather than having to save it for the next day when I get back into the office or the studio in our case. I know some people don't like remote work. They want to be surrounded by other people. They like the social setting. They like getting out of the house and all that stuff. And I understand all that. I just feel as though I can get that in other aspects of my day-to-day life. It doesn't have to be from work itself. So that's my position on remote work. I hope that it's more here to stay, but certainly many companies out there are asking people to come back to the office. All right, we'll go to one more commercial break, and then we'll be back with more of the David Pakman Show after these commercial messages.